Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Redeem Her Time podcast. We are going to have a conversation today around sales. How
Yay.
many of us, like, it's like this love-hate relationship. If you
Mm.
are in business and you want to produce an income, you have to be making sales. And yet, so many of us have either this wrong mindset around sales, or we just picture the slimy car salesman who's trying to get you in a car just to make the sale. And I know that's not where you are. And so that's why I brought my friend Dawn Grooters on today to have this conversation around like, how do we have a different mindset as business owners so that we are actually like excited about selling, right? And selling what's going to meet someone's needs because like I always say, until your business name is on their credit card statement, you can't fully make the transformation in their life, right? So how do
Yeah.
we make time for that and how do we actually do that and make it consistent? So Dawn, I'm so glad that you were here today. It's been really fun not only getting to know you over the past couple of months, but also getting to be on your podcast. So make
Yes.
sure you share the name of that as well. But like, let's start off with just like who you are. And I want to know outside of the work you do, like
Yeah.
what is it, like what things are you juggling in this season of life?
Yeah. I am I'm a Christ follower. I am a wife. My husband and I just celebrated our 21st year of marriage. And then I have a 18-year-old son who's in his senior year of high school. And then I have a 13-year-old daughter that I get to raise. And so I am in a very busy season of life. A lot of sports going on right now. Especially with his senior year, we have a lot of things like colleges and all of those things. So I feel like right now in my life, outside of work, it's just very busy, like focused on kids and getting them prepared to live out on their own and do all
Launch,
of
yeah, to
those
work
kind of
yourself
things.
out of a job. I mean, that's the goal,
Yes.
right? Is to like
Yeah.
get them out the door and help them, yeah, kind of flap
Yeah.
their own wings. And yet it's like you have this like sometimes one foot in two different places, right?
Yeah.
And I want people to hear the
Mhm.
conversations we have here on the podcast when I bring a guest in. Like it can make it seem like, oh my goodness, she's, everything is amazing and she, has all
Mhm.
the time in the world to do this thing. And yet, like you just reminded us, we all have other things, right, that we're
Yes.
doing, which is why we want to be intentional with the time that we work. So tell us
Yes.
about the work that you do. How are you specifically helping women, especially around
Mhm.
sales? What does that look like? And I would love for you to share a little bit of your story, just
Yeah.
the journey of like why this is a passion for you, maybe how God brought you to this place, just so we can kind of yeah, get some of the backstory on why
Yeah.
you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So I'll start with that backstory because I do feel like all of this, God has just prepared a way and made a plan that I didn't see coming. And honestly, I wouldn't have probably chosen it that way, but that's the way He has planned it out for me. So I started my career as a buyer. So I was a buyer for a chain of Hallmark stores. So I was buying products from sales reps. And about 6 years into that, I wanted a little bit more flexibility. I had my first son, and so I actually went to be a sales rep because I had worked with sales reps, had an idea of what it was like to be one. And so I was a sales rep. I was traveling the state, going to retailers, selling products. Really love that job. I love to get to know the retailers. I love product. And so I started doing that. And I was a sales rep for about 3 years. And then my second son unexpectedly passed away while I was out on the road. Um, it was something we didn't see coming. And when my friend called to tell me, I was walking out of an appointment with a retailer, and he told me that my son was in the hospital and it didn't look good. And
Hmm.
so, about halfway through my drive home, I was about 2 hours from home, and my husband called to tell me that our son passed away.
Wow.
And so when that happened, I knew my life was just torn apart. It was in crumbles. And so I knew I couldn't go back out on the road. It was something I had to make a decision on what was important. I needed to be at home with my son, and I found out I was pregnant with my daughter at the time, and I knew I needed to be at home. I needed time to heal. I needed to pick my life back up again the way that God wanted me to. It kind of felt like my life was broken into a ton of different pieces, and God was just going to use this time then while I was at home to build it back up the way He wanted it to. Not the way that the world tells you it's supposed to be, but the way He wanted it to. So fortunately at the time, the company that I had worked for, I said, I'm not going to go back on the road. I can't do this. They said, well, we're thinking about starting an inside sales team. Would you want to be part of that? And so I said, sure, I could at least be at home. I could call customers and sell to customers over the phone. I had a computer, I had a list. Never did that before, but I thought I'll just try it and see how it goes. Made a lot of mistakes in that. But I started to think about like how I would build relationships with the retailers when I was in front of them. So how could I do that when I wasn't in front of them? And so I started to make a lot of phone calls, ask a lot of questions, get to know these retailers, and really was able to have a lot of success in that. And within a couple of years, I was writing $1 million a year on the phone
Mm.
with these retailers and being able to have success in that. So I did that for about 7 years. Like I was just, God had me in a place where I was very content. I was bringing in income for our family. I was at home with my kids, raising them, being able to go into the classrooms and help volunteer, but just being content in that. But God, again, God had some other plans. I took on a role, a little bit bigger accounts and some key accounts. And then in 2020, the company that I worked for let me go.
Mm.
But God already had something in mind for me at that point, and I started a business, and I was helping retailers, or I was helping sales reps that were calling me and vendors that were calling me that knew me from our industry and said, "Hey, you know how to do this when we can't go into stores anymore. Like because of COVID, we can't go into stores. How do you do this?" And that's how this business was born. So now this business, we're about almost 6 years in since we are an LLC, but we're 6 years in, and I help businesses and I help salespeople learn how to sell either over the phone, through digital communications. We do trainings, we consult with companies, put together sales teams with them, and really help to just people understand like what is it, what is relationship-based selling, what value do you provide, and what kind of questions do you ask your retailers to really get to know them. Ways to sell that's definitely more personal than just transactional.
I love that. And first of all, thank you for sharing your
Mm,
story.
yeah.
It's one
Yeah.
of those, yeah, it's a hard story to hear. And I know you've just
Yeah.
shared, little bits and pieces of it. And I
Mhm.
can only imagine as a mom
Mm,
what that experience was like for you.
yeah.
And yet it's so interesting, like how God is still
Mm,
in those things and
hmm.
how he doesn't, like he does redeem.
Yes.
Not that it makes it any easier or, anything like that, but he does redeem that. He does use
Hmm.
those experiences to, number one, draw us closer to him.
Yeah.
And number two, really make us into, who he's calling us to be, to step into what he's calling us to do. And,
Yeah.
like just what a testimony that you are of
Mhm.
that. And that's actually, this podcast started when I turned 40. It was called Redeemed After 40. And it was kind of this whole idea of like how God would redeem something from this first season of life,
Oh, yeah.
and use us, and use that experience or whatever that was in a different way as we stepped into the second half, quote unquote, of life. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, like he redeems the years the locusts have eaten, and I just
Yes.
love that reminder that he is not beyond, any of those things. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting because sometimes, like you said, we wouldn't choose things, but
Mm,
they are what make us who we are, whether it's a
yeah.
career choice or whether it's like, something that happened like what you experienced. And it
Hmm.
allows us to serve people at a level that we wouldn't have been able to,
Yeah.
and all of that. And so I love that. And then COVID happens, right? And so
Yeah.
yeah, I can only imagine as a
Yeah.
salesperson, like what that was like. And yeah,
Yeah.
now people aren't going to stores and you can't go into stores and, like just the effect, the impact this had. And yet here was this opportunity that God was preparing you for
Yeah.
to be able to do
Yeah.
this. And here we are in this world now
Yeah.
where, most of the women that I work with, not 100%, but I would say most of them have some kind of an online business, like there
Hmm.
are brick and mortar people who, are in my world and that I've coached and things like that. But most of us, yeah, we're trying to we're build businesses and develop relationships without actually like being in the same room together. And so
Absolutely.
this is a challenge. I love that you talked about it
Yeah.
being relationship based selling and really making it more personal
Yeah.
rather than transactional because I want to, kind of dive into this part of things. Like
Yeah.
so many business owners bristle at the word sales.
Yeah.
right? Like, and we fear being that salesy person, that slimy, salesman who just wants to get you in the car to get the deal and feel good and go home, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like again, like why do we often have that mindset around it, and or we say, there's the I don't want to be that kind of salesperson. I feel like I'm bothering people. And then there's just the I'm just not good at sales. So let's kind of maybe talk about maybe some of the struggles that
Yeah.
are seeing people experience around sales.
Yeah.
And why this is why especially us, especially as believers, who are also in business, why is this something that we're coming up against?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think maybe we've all had bad experiences about with sales, bad salespeople, or salespeople that are just so almost self-centered. They're trying to get the sale. They're pushing really hard. They're pushing us into a decision maybe we don't want to make. And so I think that we've had those experiences, and sometimes those people come off arrogant or pushy and or maybe even overly charismatic, and we're like, well, we don't want to be that way. Well, good news is you don't have to be that way. I think, sometimes when we don't want to do sales, it's maybe sometimes I think we worry about ourselves a little bit too much. Like we have the fear of rejection. Well, most of the time it's not about you that they're saying no. We have that fear. I think sometimes we're like, oh, well, I have to get everything just perfectly right to say it exactly the right way so that they're going to say yes. Well, it's not about that either. And so I think we've had all those experiences, and that leads us to be like, well, I'm just not going to do sales because I don't like the bad experiences. I don't want to be arrogant and pushy. I don't want to make it all about myself, and then we don't do anything. And we can't do that either because we're not doing our businesses and the value we provide any justice in that. And so we need to kind of change that mindset that we have on sales, because we want to sell in our businesses to be able to generate the income that we need to help our families. And that's kind of the reason why, like sales was good for me in that time. We needed the extra income in our family when I was started doing inside sales. It wasn't a lot that I was bringing in, but it was something that we needed, and I could at least afford to be at home to do it.
Mm.
And so I think we have to change the way we view sales. And it's not the way we've always seen it or the world tells us it is. The big part, I think, is learning about our customers and providing the value. If we think about sales more as the value that we're providing, that's where we can change that mindset. So even
Yeah.
if, this customer doesn't see all that value, the next customer may see that value. And we want to make sure we share that with the customers that and the clients that want that value.
Yeah. And don't you find that like people will buy things from people that they know, like, and trust, right? So
Yes.
it may not be
Yes.
today, but you're
Yep.
planting seeds, as you're building that relationship, as you are getting curious about what they need versus just buy my thing,
Yes.
to really then be able to speak in, when the time is right. And then, like people will respond when they remember how much you cared about who they were and what they
Yes.
needed, and you were respectful of that,
Yes.
you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I love this reminder of like it's about the value that we're giving.
Mm. Yep.
It's not about getting the sale, but really the sale is what opens the door to the transformation, what opens the
Yes.
door to the service. And
Yeah.
so like, I've often, heard the saying like sales is service.
Yes.
When I am when I make a sale, it's not just I made a sale. Now I'm really able to serve you in a way that I can't if you're just binging my free content or, listening to
Yes.
the podcast or reading my emails, because now we can
Mhm.
really get into, what you need. So,
Yes.
um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and like you said, it's so essential to business. Like none of us would
Yes.
be, hopefully we shouldn't be continuing in business if we're not making sales. Like we need to like push
Yes.
pause. So here's where I would love like to lean on your expertise and say, okay,
Hmm.
we don't want to be, the slimy people. We also don't want to run away from it, because we're
Yep.
bothering people. Like we really need to see this is how I'm actually able to serve. So how
Yes.
do we start doing this in a way where it's not just about getting the sale, it's about meeting needs, where it's really about caring more
Hmm.
about the person, right, than the
Yeah.
transaction?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe kind of help us kind of think through. I know some of it's
Yeah.
probably gonna be mindset and some of it might be some actual like practical things. How do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, when you have your ideal client or you have those clients that come into your world that you want to get to know, you want them to get to know you as well. And so it is that relationship based. So to develop a relationship, you have to ask each other questions and have conversations. That's why I like having phone calls because you can accomplish so much more with the person by having a conversation. So you can ask questions of each other, you can get to know things by having that conversation. I might be able to pick up on things like if you said, "Hey, I just got back from my vacation." Well, tell me about your vacation. Where did you go? What did you do? And by me asking a couple of those questions, just to get to know you a little bit more, like maybe you're a beach person, or maybe you like to do, travel and do tours and, go to museums and things. Like I get to know you a little bit more, and then you can in turn get to know me. And so if we get to know our customers, then we're going to be able to ask more uh, relationship questions, but then also ask more business related questions. And so, like, if I was calling a retailer and, start to build that relationship with them, then I would ask them, what's selling well in your store? What's maybe not selling so well in your store? Or if you're working with a client, like think of like an interior design client, like what room do you love in your house? What room don't you like and why? Like just asking some of those questions because that really gets down to then what their problem is, and then you can have your value-minded solution to go along with it.
Yeah,
And
I
so
love
if
that.
you
It's getting
have,
curious, right? Like
yes, yeah,
not assuming. I mean, how many times do we assume that somebody needs or wants, or we assume the reason they would need or want something?
yes.
And if we don't take the time to really seek to understand, then
Hmm.
there's going to be a disconnect. They're either not
Yeah,
going to see the need or they're not going to see the value of what you have to offer, or they're just not going to hear you at all because
yes,
you have your own
yeah,
agenda, right? As you're coming in.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where they think salespeople get pushy is if I just come in and say, "Listen, you need this, and this is why you need it," and you're like, "No, I don't need that, and I don't, that's not why I need it." Then I come off pushy in that. But if I've asked you questions about, how business is going and what do you need, then I can come as the salesperson with the approach to you, like a more targeted approach to say, okay, I heard you say that this is an issue for you. Here's a way that I can help you with that. Then it doesn't come off as pushy or arrogant or that I know everything. It's I'm listening to what you're saying and I have some value that I can provide to help you with that. That's
Hmm.
not pushy at all. And that's
Right.
not salesy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then people are more responsive, right, in that
Yes.
situation because they're feeling heard. They're
Yep.
feeling seen, and they're actually able to see like here's the connection between what my need is and what the
Yep.
solution is that you have to offer. And
Yes.
then, yeah, that relationship continues to grow as we serve them and find out, what those deeper, needs are and things like that.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
what are maybe a couple of practical things that we can do?
Hmm.
I love how you said pick up the phone, and I think
Yep.
we live in this day and age. And I just had this conversation with my clients on a coaching call today that so many of them want to automate all this stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yes. And
Yes.
there's still a time to pick up the phone and at
Yes.
least leave a voice message. I mean, you and I have voice
Yes.
message back and forth. We've
Yes.
been on the phone together. Like I do video messages to people. If you come in my world, I don't care if you download something free, you are going to hear from me directly. Yes, you will also
Yes.
get some of my, like, here's the email, the thing you asked for, or a text, type of
Hmm.
thing. But like, there's something about like actually being able to have conversations. So I would, yeah, I would kind of love to dive into some practical things that we can do, even living in a digital age,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
can help develop relationships and be able to get to this place where we are able to ask these questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think one of the first things that I always do is I research the customer, right?
Mm.
So I look and see. So if it's a client that I'm looking at, if it's a business client, I'm looking at their website, I'm looking at their social media. I'm getting to know just who they are through what they put out. They're putting that information out. So I want to research that customer and that client. And then the next step to that is to connect with them. So, like you said, either it's a voice message, you can send the voice messages through DMs just to get to know them, to connect with them that way. If you have their phone number, pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. Even if you don't get them to answer the phone, leave a voicemail. They might not listen to the voicemail, but they might read the translated text that happens. So you want to connect with them in some way. And then when you have the opportunity to have that conversation or even sending emails, ask them questions like,
Mm.
what are your biggest struggles right now? What are the things that if you could wave the magic wand, what would you want? Um, Ask those questions because if you don't know the answers to those questions, it's going to be really hard for you to know what kind of solutions and value you can provide for them.
Mm.
And then I would say the next step on that is what is that value? Don't just call someone to call someone or sell something to sell something. You have value. What is it? What is in your programs that provide value to customers? Like for you, Lissa, it's, you help people with time and being more productive and making sure that they're not wasting time. So you're providing them a value. What is it if it's a product that you're selling? What is the value in that product and how can it help save you time, money, whatever it is. Think about the value and share that value with the customers.
Mm.
Is everybody going to say yes? No, they won't. But the customers that it's right for, they're going to see the value and they're going to want to purchase from you. And that's where that whole sale starts. So those would be, I would just say, get to know your customers, research them, connect with them in some way, ask them questions, and then share value with them.
Yeah, yeah. And unless you're like, a company like Nike where people are just
Yeah.
coming to you, like I think
Hmm.
most small business owners, especially the ones that I work with and ones who listen to this
Yeah.
podcast, like
Yeah.
we are in the place where our name is not a household brand, and
Yes.
so
Yes.
we have to be willing to personally reach out. And here's what I'm hearing, and this is what I want to kind of tie this back to. This takes time. It's
Yes.
so much easier and faster to just send the automated email. Like it
Yes.
takes time to go find them on social media. It takes time to look at their website. It takes time to get on the phone, right? And so
Hmm.
what it always comes down to with time, right, is the return on time invested, the roadie,
Yes.
right? And when
Hmm.
something does have a good roadie, then yes, it may take me some more time than, just clicking a button, but, it will
Yes.
be worth it. So let's kind of like, how does this approach to sales affect our time and our
Yeah.
roadie, right?
Hmm.
Like, how is this going to help us produce more results in our business as business owners so that we, yeah, maybe, I have people tell me I'm an introvert, like I don't
Hmm.
like, being that way or whatever, but yet when I ask them like, but are you like shy of serving them when they're actually in your world? No, not at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then if you can tie that roadie to I have to pick up the phone to leave him a message,
Yes.
or whatever, then we'll do it. So yeah, let's tie this together with like how does this help us, with our return on time invested, which is going to
Yeah.
be, the sales that we're
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think, like you talk about, the time invested on this, and I think it does take time to do it. So I always ask clients, like, start small.
Mm.
Make it a goal to, call 10 customers or send out 10 messages to customers a day. 10 customers. That's all I'm asking you. It's not a lot. Usually you can do that in an hour because it is a sales activity. You have to do something, an activity, an email, a phone call, a voice message. You have to do some kind of activity to move that sale forward.
Mm.
And so do 10 sales activities with 10 customers a day. And then if you think about it, if you do that once a day for 5 days, that's 50 potential clients that you have contacted. And then you can see from there, okay, by the end of the week, how many of them responded? How many of those asked questions? That's a real way for you to say, okay, I spent 5 hours this week doing 10 sales activities every single day, and this is my return on investment for
Mm.
that. And so that's going to give them a realistic number. And if it's really low, that's okay. Maybe
Mm.
there's things you can tweak in there. Maybe there's a different question you can ask, or maybe, calling didn't work and it's sending an email or going out to their DMs. You can adjust all of that in your sales activities as you go forward, but take that time to do that and then figure out what that return on investment is.
Yeah, and this is what the roadie method that we talk
Yeah.
about is all about, right? Like we have to pay
Mhm.
attention to the return on time invested
Yes.
and then not get upset because we're not seeing the numbers we want, but get curious.
Yes.
I wonder why this is the result I'm seeing or not seeing.
Yes.
And then get
Hmm.
strategic around, okay, what do I need to adjust about how I'm investing my time? And I do also want to say that yes, there are the tangible like results of like the actual sale and cash,
Yes.
like cash in hand, which feels
Yes.
great.
Yep.
But every single time that you have made a connection with somebody, you have planted a seed.
Yes.
And I heard recently that at any given time, like I think it was like 3% of your audience is ready to buy now, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's okay, if they
Yeah.
didn't respond. It's okay,
Yes.
if they didn't say yes. Like it's okay
Hmm.
because chances are 97% of people may not have been ready at that moment,
Yeah.
but you've planted a seed. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting because I have had people that I have reached out to, personally, who come into my world, didn't hear anything back from them. And then when they were ready, they reached out to me,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
were like, hey, Lissa, I think
Yeah.
I need what you do. Hey, Lissa, how do I work with you? Because I had taken the time, even though it didn't seem like it was producing anything at the time, right? Like I took
Yeah.
the time to plant the seed and,
Yes.
trust that, yeah, this is bearing fruit. And some seeds farmers put in the ground don't produce anything. And
Yep.
that's part of business too, right? Not
Yes.
everybody, yeah,
Yep.
is
Well,
going
and
to
I
turn into
think
that.
Yeah, I think that big key in there too is the follow-up. So even if
Mhm.
you call those 50 customers that first week and then, following up even 1 or 2 weeks later with them, they might have gotten that message really like at a bad time.
Yeah.
Following up with them, it's 40% of sales reps only contact a customer one time.
Oh,
That's 60%. That's a huge amount of time that you could be following up. And typically it takes, like in my world, it takes about 6 to 8 phone calls for us to even get to a point where they're placing an order with us. And so that's a lot. And so if 40% of sales reps aren't following up in that amount or 6 to 8 times, that's a huge amount of sales reps that are missing sales.
yes.
And
Oh, for
so if
sure.
yeah. So follow up, I think, is one of the biggest keys to that is just don't contact them once and expect, someone to buy from you right away. It has to be multiple times that they hear from you. They get to know you because they've heard from you multiple times. They get to see your persistence. They get to see the value that you provide over and over. And so follow up with that is really important. So
Yeah.
I don't want you just to try this for 1 week and then be like, oh,
It
it's
didn't
not
work.
working.
Yeah, and
You
don't
have to
assume
do it
because you
more
don't
than
hear from somebody that means they're not interested or they don't need it.
Yeah,
Because sometimes, like the busiest people are not the people who are always going to respond. But when they're
exactly.
ready and
Yes.
you're top of mind and they know that you care,
Yeah.
then they're going to, click that button or respond to that email or that message or, whatever that is. And so
Yes.
yeah, I love that because this is how it ties in
Yeah.
to time because
Yes.
yes, I mean you would have completely wasted. I mean, yes, it was valuable to reach out to 50 people this week, but if you don't have a system and a schedule for how you are following up with people,
Yes.
I call it my hello to let's go system.
Yeah.
You said like most of those
Mhm.
are not going to turn into anything, right? And
Yeah.
we think we just have to always chase new leads. Well, I think more the
Yes.
problem is what am I doing with the leads I already have? What am I doing with people who
Yes.
raise their hand in some way, shape, or form? They're on my email list. They're in my
Yeah.
community. They commented on something on social. They filled out a form that, came to a workshop. Like, what are we doing with those people? We're just hoping that they're going to read the email that got dropped in their inbox,
Yeah.
and let's be honest. Like, first of all, even emails, I just learned this recently.
Yeah.
Emails also work off an algorithm. I didn't realize
Mhm.
this. Like, I thought I knew social, right? And so I'm not
Yeah.
a big
Yeah.
proponent of social, but I'm like, oh, my email list, 100% of people have a choice if they're going to open my email or not. Well, not
Yeah.
really. Actually, there
Yeah.
still is an algorithm there. And so if I'm depending on that to be what gets
Hmm.
their attention, yeah,
Yeah.
they may never see it, right? And then they've
Yes.
moved on to somebody else. And so, yes, I love this.
Yeah.
We have to make
We
sure
have.
that we've got the strategy and the
Yeah.
system and the schedule. And
Yes.
then you can do these amazing things like Dawn is teaching you, right?
Yeah.
That are actually going to produce results because
Yes.
you have a way to, yeah, consistently invest time over time.
Yes.
So what would you
Absolutely.
say to that? What would be that one piece of encouragement to that woman who's listening who she struggles with sales. Either maybe she's
Hmm.
not getting sales and feels like she's just not good at it, or she's,
Hmm.
kind of had this like, I don't really know that I want to put the time and effort into it, or I don't want to be that, pushy person. What would you say to her to kind of get her off that fence and encourage
Yeah.
her to invest some time in this?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that if you have to just take that step. You have to pick up the phone. They always say the hardest phone call to make is the first
Mm,
one. And so you have to pick up the phone to do it because they're never going to know the value you provide unless you reach out to them and make the phone call and send the email. I will say on that, we tend to see a lot better response by making a phone call and then sending the follow-up email because they're more likely to open it to be like, oh, she called me and here's her email with the information. So I think just making the time to taking the time to do that. Make that first phone call. Go ask the questions. I think you have to get curious about your customers. And you can do this because I am not a super extroverted person either, but I do like to talk to people and I like to talk to people one-on-one rather than like a big group. And so I want to get to know people. And I've had great conversations that had nothing to do with selling, but like great conversations with people just by picking up the phone and learning about their business and learning about their life. And I think that's something that could encourage people just to be like, take the pressure off. Like you have to have a perfect sales pitch because you don't. I've probably made every mistake in the book and have been able to recover from every mistake in the book because I was more willing to like, it was more personal and I wanted to build that relationship rather than just sell something.
Yeah. Yeah, people can tell when you're being scripted, when it's like it
Hmm.
feels like this canned thing. I mean, we can spot AI all over the place
Yes.
right now when you
Yeah.
get an email or you get, somebody just sending you a DM that sounds like it's copy pasted, from
Yes.
so that's why I love the voice thing or a video.
Hmm.
And I'll be like, "Hey, Dawn,
Yeah.
here's what I was thinking about, and here's what we
Yeah.
talked about last time, and so just people know, like, oh, this isn't just like she's sending this to everybody, like she is sending this to me. Like, there's something
Yeah.
about that, which, yeah, I love, I love.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad we're having this conversation because sales is key to being in
Yes.
business and staying in business and making sure
Mhm.
that, especially when, we feel like we're giving a lot of time to something and not seeing the fruit that we want, we have to
Yes.
really know, okay, how am I investing time in the sales piece that we can create the amazing product, the amazing
Yep.
service, but the sales piece is how we get it in people's hands. So you've been such an
Absolutely.
encouragement and a challenge to us. So what would be a great next step for someone if they want to, continue, learning from you about, sales and all of that? Where would you want to send them next?
Yeah, yeah. So you can go to my website. It's brokenvesselsales.com, and you can connect with me there. And then we can also set up a free connect call. And on that call, I kind of learn more about your business and where you're at, and then we can decide on what's the next best step for you. So I'm sure Lissa will put that in the notes as well, like where to
Yes.
schedule that call. But Broken Vessel Sales is where you'll find me, and I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram as well.
I love it. I love it. And what a beautiful name. It comes
Yeah.
full circle to the story that you shared with us in the beginning. We
Yeah.
are all broken vessels that the
Hmm.
Lord is, put together. We're crushed
Yes.
but not destroyed, right? I love how Paul
Yes.
describes that, like, and just, yeah, that's what makes it beautiful is that it's
Hmm.
not perfect. And that shows that
Yeah.
it's the power is from him and not from us.
Yep.
Even
Yep.
when it comes down to sales, right? It's not about
Absolutely.
the exact thing, like you said, it's not about what we were saying, but the heart in which we're coming at the conversation. So, yeah, we'll make sure to
Absolutely.
link that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And my audience knows, and if they don't, and you're new around here, we continue the conversation after the podcast over inside the Redeem Her Time community. I feel like we get so many great ideas. We hear so many, from so many amazing people like Dawn, but again, a lot of things stop there with good intentions. Oh, yeah, I need to. And then we're on to the
Hmm.
next thing. So come over into the community. I'm inviting Dawn to be in there as our guest for a few days around this episode airing. And you can connect with her anytime in there too, right? But here's where we're actually going to like, in fact, let's do the pick up the phone challenge, right? Like let's put
Yeah.
in the community. If you're in for the pick up the phone challenge, maybe it's just one person today and then you build up to the 10,
Yep.
like let's just like try it. Give it
Yep.
90 days, right? See,
Yep.
test Dawn in this and see if this
Yeah.
does produce some results. And we'll encourage each other and challenge each other over there. So if you're not a member yet, you can find us at redeemhertime.com/community. If you are a member, then come on over and let's be part of this and let's start really approaching sales in a whole different way and start seeing the results that produces and the transformation we get to make. So I love it. Well, good. Well, Donna, thank you so much for being with us today. You've got a ton of value. It's really been fun to introduce you to my audience, and I always love connecting with you. So I always love to end like
Yeah.
on this personal question. We're
Yeah.
recording this episode right here, like it's fall and we're
Yep.
heading into Q4. And I know for
Yeah.
salespeople, Q4 is like,
Yeah.
probably like let's run to, kind of sprint to the finish line type thing.
Mhm.
But, as you're thinking about like the season in front of you personally in your business and your life, what is it time for? What are the things that you're wanting to really make sure you make time for? And maybe what's
Yeah.
the roadie that you're expectant of from that?
Yeah. So I would say, and I'm going to probably start crying, but I would say because my son is a senior in high school, it is really time to just focus in on what he is doing and preparing him for his next phase. And so I think that's something I want to be very intentional so that when he does go off to college and he knows what he wants to do, he feels like he was very prepared for
Yeah.
that. And so I think that's the roadie is that he feels prepared. Whether I'm emotional about it or not, but he feels prepared. And I think this is a time where that's definitely something in my life that is overarching either the business or anything else is just preparing him for his next phase.
Yeah, and just enjoying the senior year, the last of so
Yeah.
many things, and just
Yeah.
yeah, so it changes when
Yes.
whether even if they don't move out of the house and they just start, working or going to, school,
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah.
different, but
Yeah.
especially when
Yeah.
they leave the house, yeah, that time is different and it just looks
Mhm.
different and it's okay. So
Yeah.
enjoy, yeah, this season with him as you're doing that senior year, and then you've got a girl that's gonna be
Yes.
there before you know it. So.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, always time well spent. And I know that that will have a good roadie for both of you. So thanks so
Yeah.
much for sharing with us today. Can't wait for us to have some more conversation over inside the community. So we'll see you guys
Yes.
there. All right. Take
Awesome.
care.
Bye.